So suppose you leave school and you're hired as an economist somewhere, and your boss says, why don't you estimate supply and demand with this data and tell me about the elasticities? So you have some data, maybe you have the price, an item was sold, and the quantity exchanged. And maybe this is observations over time, or maybe it's observations across the United States at different stores or something. And you have this data. When it was $5, 12 were bought and sold. When it was $5, 10. When it was $7, 13 were bought and sold. And when it was $6, 11. So let's draw this. I don't like that marker. So 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13. 5 and 12. And 5 and 10. 7 and 13. And 6 and 11. Great, so you have two variables and you know how to run regressions, right? So you run this regression. You say, put it into R, you say LM, let's have Q on P. And in 201, maybe you talked about like the variables are flopped. We usually actually think about quantity as the dependent variable, which is why I have quantity as the Y. You could also do P on Q. And so using linear regression, you find the line of best fit with these lines. And you find something that looks like this, right? That's the line of best fit here. So the question is, are you estimating supply, or are you estimating demand here? It looks like there's a line sloping up. Does that mean that you're estimating supply? And the answer is no. You're estimating neither. So these data points, these are our estimates of what equilibrium was at each of these times. So these data points were determined simultaneously by supply and demand. Maybe supply and demand are both like about unit elastic. So supply and demand were like this. And every single data point, supply and demand were shifting a little bit. Or maybe, if I drew again, this is another scenario with the same points about in the same places. Maybe actually supply is pretty elastic, so it's really flat. So maybe supply only shifted once and demand shifted a bunch of times. So this is, in this scenario, supply is elastic and demand is about unit elastic. We could also have the opposite scenario. We could have demand being really elastic let's say demand is this, goes through this point, sorry. And then supply is more unit elastic. Demand is elastic. So all this to say, just looking at these data points on a chart here, we have no clue about the shape of about the elasticities of supply and demand here. It could be literally anything, because these points are determined by the intersection of those two lines, or by these two equations, supply and demand. So we need more information. We know we need something else in order to to estimate these, to estimate elasticities. So